Sports Jordan Shusterman joining us now on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook hotline right after the Mariners have officially clinched a playoff spot. Jordan, this felt like something overwhelmingly likely once they swept the Astros. But I got to say, even just seeing it happen in that park, Naylor's bases clearing double, the guys putting on the T-shirts, as someone that's lived here my whole life, and I know it happened in 2022, it's still a surreal feeling. What was it like watching a team that did face some doubts and some serious concerns during the season finally clinch that spot?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And having been in the building the last time it happened 3 years ago, kind of had a similar vibe from the standpoint of you're facing a really bad team and you're losing, or it's a close game, and then you kind of feel like they are going to come back against the bad team. And that is exactly what happened. And instead of Cal Raleigh's memorable walk-off, you have the Josh Naylor double, which will, of course, be remembered for a long time. But, yeah, a very different experience for me watching it this year. I was in the empty Progressive Field press box after I had finished writing about the Tigers and Guardians wild game that I got to watch. So it was a very serene, quiet. I was in a ballpark, but there was no one else there, and I just had my headphones in listening to Aaron Goldsmith go crazy. It was cool.
15 of 16. What's been the most impressive thing about the way they're closing out this season?
Man, everything is clicking right now, right? I think, and we can get into Naylor in particular, but I know you asked me about him recently, Bump, but Dom Canzone with the big homer last night, right? I mean, you're getting contributions from pretty much everyone. The pitching is really showing up. Even Bryce Miller, who I think even he would admit has been the weak link here recently, is still able to pitch into the sixth inning and not let the damage get too much and give the team an opportunity to come back. That said, I mean, even if he had allowed 5 or 6 runs, I mean, this offense, the way that they've been swinging it, you kind of feel like they're still in any game. So to carry that momentum back home after that road trip is, I think, what's especially encouraging.
I wanted to talk about the end of that road trip. Jordan, both Bump and I felt it was especially important that the Mariners met the moment. This team so many times has had great stuff on paper, great rotation, some good hitters. Obviously, we've been waiting for everything to complement each other. But outside of that, sometimes they've gone into big moments and it's just like they let you down. Maybe it's a lack of experience in those moments or whatever, but it felt like a tide shift that they actually went to Houston, not just swept the Astros, but at no point trailed the Astros. I know they had the same record going into it, but, and you know this, watching the series itself felt like teams in very different places.
Oh, 100%. And that's really what I harped on when we talked about it on the podcast on Monday is, for all the history and everything that has kind of led up to this moment, right now the Mariners are way better than the Astros. That has been true for arguably months if you really think about the state of this Astros roster. But as I've come on here every week, I say, listen, you default to Houston until you don't. And I guess I can still say that at this point, although at this stage, you know, it sure seems like the Mariners are going to wrap this up here in the next couple of days, if not sooner. So. Yeah, they look like two teams in different places based on how they're playing, but also just the status of the rosters, where you just have a team in Seattle that is reloaded and as Wu injury scare aside, and that's very important, pretty healthy, and has to be feeling good. And Houston obviously has been pretty much the opposite the entire season.
Jordan, I asked our producer this question. We're having a conversation before this interview, and I looked at him and I said, has Naylor been the best pickup at the trade deadline? I mean, last year you had a Rosarena who we felt was the best pickup at the trade deadline. Are they 2 for 2?
I mean, it sure seems that way. And I think if we zoom in on that moment last night, it's a reminder of the importance. And listen, to your point, whether he had that double last night or not, you could still be asking this question, right? Because the stats are the stats, how well he's been hitting in Seattle. He's obviously been a perfect fit in many respects. But it is for moments like that because you have an inning where, Randy strikes out and Cal strikes out and Julio gets hit by a pitch. And, you want to give your offense, your team, as many opportunities as possible to have good players up in big moments. And that is why you go out and get a Josh Naylor and a Suarez, right? You can never have too much because baseball is really hard. And as we've seen time and time again, even this season, if you're asking just Cal Raleigh to do it or just Julio to do it, the math tells you are often going to be disappointed. That is not a commentary on the quality of those players who also have their fair share of big hits. But if you keep adding good players, you're going to end up with more opportunities to have a moment like Josh Naylor had last night.
We were very close, speaking of last night, to talking about a loss to the Rockies. And so also worth mentioning that while we were all very excited to see the win and everyone was absolutely elated afterwards, and now you're just focused on clinching the AL West. Can you get a 2 seed? Those types of conversations. It's still worth noting that there are some things with this team that can concern fans and should. That being said, I look around the American League and I'm like, I can make a case for any one of these teams to lose in their first round or to get to a World Series. It's such a weird league, and there's so much to like about these teams, and also kind of an Achilles heel for all of them. My question is really about the bigger picture there, though, Jordan. Why do you think we're seeing a bit more parity in the league this year?
Yeah, that is a good question, because we have been quick to point out, and I think it's accurate, and I think it is why, especially in this moment, Mariners fans should, and they still have work to be done here. And by the way, I mean, they might be, if the Blue Jays keep struggling here, are we talking about a 1 seed?
I don't want that path.
There's all kinds of ways that this can go over these next 5 days, and all of those will impact their path to the postseason. But to your point, yeah, what is that about? Because, if you could say, oh, well, you look at the results in the postseason with the expanded playoff field, you have teams like the Rangers and the Diamondbacks go to the World Series. We're not even talking about the randomness of October. This has been, and I'm watching it up close here more than ever with the Guardians and the Tigers. Mm-hmm. This has just been the ultimate year where you just got to say it's a long season. There's a lot of time for things to go very wrong and very right. And while those games are finally counting down and we are reaching a conclusion here in the regular season, it has offered a lot of time for very good teams to look very bad and what we thought to be very bad teams to heat up in spectacular fashion and make an unlikely run to the postseason. So I don't know if it says anything more specifically about the grand nature of the state of the league and the current teams playing in it. I think it's more of a commentary on the sport itself and how long the season is.
Jordan, it feels like the star power on this team is growing, right? The light is shining brighter and brighter as the days go along. But as we all know, it's about depth, right? You got to get contributions from guys like Cam Zone. When you look at kind of the role players who aren't considered the stars, how deep is this team compared to other teams in the hunt?
Oh, that is where I think that they are ahead. And again, the depth chart looks stronger it still comes back to those star players because there's more of them, right? So when you got Naylor and Suarez hitting 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and so on, you're pushing those names farther down, and you have a guy like a Robles or a Raleigh who's still, again, Raleigh was one of their best players last season, and he's now kind of been reduced partially due to injury, partially due to his own underperformance to being more of a bit player, but he's able to make a difference last night. And then JP's certainly heated up, and he's not, to call him a role player is disrespectful. He's been the starting shortstop on this team for a long time, but from an overall production, we're still talking about a guy at the bottom of the lineup. But yeah, guys like Robles, guys, maybe there still are moments for someone like a Rivas, someone like a Cole Young. We'll see. But I think that definitely is a strength of this team as well.
I was listening to an interview with Jeff Passan, who was asked who would he vote for MVP. He doesn't have a vote, but he said, I'd vote for Aaron Judge and I would hate it, which I thought was an interesting answer. Is that kind of where you land?
Yeah.
You won't hurt anyone's feelings, Jordan.
I will say it is a great answer. And I spoke to another voter recently who gave me a very similar answer, but I don't have a vote. And I don't know. I'm so honestly, like as for all the discourse and all the Yankees fans getting mad and Mariners fans, trying to stand up for their guy, rightfully so. I'm excited to see where this goes, because I think that this could be an MVP race that we remember for a long time. The other thing is, the reality is, as soon as we get to the postseason for both of these teams, people will keep having those conversations, but how that goes will also influence it, even if the voting has already been completed. And then we'll come back to the discourse in November. Yeah. At this point, though, man, I just think what Cal has done, I think for him to do it as a catcher, I'm already a sucker for catchers. So he's really kind of playing into my wheelhouse here. And I just think him, having 1,000 innings caught for this team that has surged to potentially its first division title in 25 years I think that's enough. I think it is enough of a difference from a defensive standpoint to at least be a worthy vote. And that said, I totally understand if you look at Aaron Judge and say he's the best hitter since Barry Bonds. He's so much better than everyone else at hitting, and I respect that. then that's why he's going to get a lot of votes too. And that's okay. And I think both sides should be able to acknowledge that the other side is doing something crazy. And so hopefully we can get to that point and then have some fun baseball conversations come November. It's probably a little bit optimistic, though.
Jordan, we should take that perspective in life right now. Both sides doing something crazy, but wrong station for that. Someone asked me on X, they were like, is Dan Wilson manager of the year? And I wrote back, he should be in consideration. And it's always a funny award to me because I feel like out of the four major sports, the Skip has the least influence on the game, but he does have influence. What do you say to that?
Man, it's a good question, and to right, like we've been talking about Dan Wilson a lot this season, and when it was going wrong, and there's some strange moves here and there. I mean, if we're just going on the narrative, and you know, you take the team, I think it's a little bit of a different case because while not everyone was picking the Mariners to make the postseason, they have a very good roster, right? They have a really, really good team. And so normally you see more of the votes for the guys that are doing it with less as opposed to what looks like one of the better rosters. And that's why, honestly, until this past 2 weeks, I think that's why Joe Espada with Houston was going to have that strong case, because if they did it again, you would have been like, all right, well, he must be doing something right. And obviously, again, what I'm watching in Cleveland here with Stephen Vogt, who won last year, but with what they're doing with this roster and this surge and being able to overcome some absolutely unpredictable and unfortunate stuff off the field involving two of their best pitchers, they've had a lot to deal with here too. So, but at this point, with how they're finishing, absolutely, man. I mean, again, that's the tone you're going to end the season on. I think that there are going to be voters for that award that be like, man, that's a big difference to the way the Mariners have finished the last couple of years, and credit to Dan for that.
Fitting that you've been paying such close attention to the Guardians-Tigers series, because we wanted to ask also kind of a glance at the rest of the AL. There's a lot at stake over the next couple games here and a lot of moving pieces. Already here in Seattle, like we mentioned earlier, we're looking at, can you clinch the division? Then can you clinch the 2 seed? What else are we watching for around baseball so that Mariners fans kind of know what to track here?
I mean, this has been just an unbelievable last week to kind of put us in this position. I mean, the AL Central thing alone, because of the historic, context of this 15.5 game lead that the Tigers had, that seems to stand out above all of them. But I mean, there aren't really much of the standings that we can count on at this point, and that's in both leagues. Now I'm suddenly looking at this Dodgers lead in the NL West and wondering what's happening over there. The Cubs, can they hang on to home field there? Can the Yankees catch the Blue Jays? Blue Jays had a tiebreaker, so that's tough. But it's really all, if we're just focused on the American League, it's all eyes on the Tigers still. Because what happens over these next 2 games in Cleveland, and then they go to Boston. Boston's another character in this race in terms of how the standings are going to shake out, which could very much influence who is actually playing Seattle in this first round, assuming they get the bye. And if not, I mean, again, 5 games is not a lot of games, but we've seen a lot happen over the last 5 games. I'm having a tough time saying for certain what Seattle fans can expect. But the way the players are talking, they want to win every game. They want to come, of course, for the division title first, lock up the bye. And, hey, here they are 2 games behind Toronto. And if Toronto keeps scuffling, maybe Seattle can come out with the best record in the American League. I would not totally put it past them.
All right, finish the sentence, Jordan. The Mariners are blank.
The Mariners are a really good baseball team, and probably, I think Ryan Divish has said this recently, that it's the most talented team he's covered, and he's been doing this for a long time. So I have obviously been watching the Mariners pretty closely for a while now too, and I echo that sentiment. This is the best roster and the best functioning roster that we have seen, and that's why fans should have a lot of excitement going into October.
He is Yahoo Sports Jordan Shusterman. Make sure you're checking out Baseball Barbie Cast as well. Lots of great coverage, obviously, with how insane this final week is going. And in addition to the Mariners making the postseason, we get more baseball and more Jordan. So we're very excited about that. Thanks so much, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
Indeed, guys. Talk soon.
Have a good one.